Steve Jobs. I bet those weren't the first two words you'd think you'd hear in today's video, but it's gonna all make sense. We're gonna talk about DJI versus GoPro in today's real raw vlog. So let's get right into it. Hi everyone, I'm Breck Aramella with BreckAramella.com, and in today's video I got off to a real rough start. I almost got attacked by a bunch of raccoons, as you can see here, but I successfully relocated. So we're gonna move on. We're gonna talk about DJI and GoPro. Before I do, today's sponsor is actually no one, but I do want to give a special shout out to Bluehost. I've used them for hosting for more than 8 years. The reason why I really like them, and I'm giving them a shout out today, they're not paying me for this, it's just I love their customer service. It's always so hard to find good customer service nowadays. And the thing I like about Bluehost is that I can call them on the phone anytime I want, and I talk to a real person. They're based in Phoenix, Arizona. They're super nice, they're so friendly, and every time I talk to them on the phone, I'm like, man, that person was like the friendliest person I ever met. And then I call back another time, I'll talk to someone else, and I'll be like, wow, this person's just as friendly. I can't believe it, and very knowledgeable and helpful. So it's amazing customer service, very good prices, and I've been really happy with them. So that's why I give them a shout out. I'll leave a link below if you're starting a website or need some hosting. I highly recommend Bluehost. Okay, so let's start with this video. So DJI versus GoPro. The GoPro with the Hero 7, DJI now coming out with its own action camera, the Osmo Action. That rivalry sort of began with the Karma, but it goes back to the Phantom 1. Now, because DJI just released the Osmo Action, I'm gonna be focused more on DJI for this video, but this is really gonna be a two-part video. When the GoPro Hero 8 comes out, that's gonna be the second part. So just stay tuned for that. We all start with DJI, back with the Phantom 1, and Frank Wang was in college in 2005. In case you don't know who Frank Wang is, he's the CEO of DJI. Now, Frank was a very smart guy, and he actually wanted to go to either MIT or Stanford. He was really good at math and engineering. Unfortunately, he didn't have good enough grades to get into either one of those schools, so he got into the MIT version of those schools in Hong Kong. So he went to that school, and he was given about $2,000, $2,400 in that range by the university to build a helicopter. And ever since Frank Wang was a kid, he wanted to build helicopters and airplanes that could follow him around. He was basically obsessed with this, with flying, helicopters, airplanes, all of this. So he decided to build one. He got the money from his university and he built it. He built that for around $2,000, and someone wanted to buy it for $6,000. So a light bulb went off in his head. He's like, wow, I could turn this into a business. So that's what he did. He started DJI right after graduation, and that company started with just like 3 or 4 employees the first 2 years. So the first 2 years, it was Frank and about 3 or 4 of these employees, and he kind of upset them. He wasn't the nicest guy, and that's why I kind of bring up Steve Jobs, because he kind of reminds me of the Chinese Steve Jobs. He's very much a perfectionist, very much of a go-getter, of a smart businessman, but can be very abrasive and really hard on people. And you know, it's hard to rise in business that high up without being super competitive, and that doesn't mean you shouldn't treat people the right way. So you know, he even admits that he did it, just like Steve Jobs kind of admits that as well. And I'm giving you some of this backstory so you understand the psychological aspect of Frank Wang and DJI, because they're two of the same thing. DJI is Frank Wang and Frank Wang is DJI, just like Apple is Steve Jobs, and when Steve Jobs died, Apple changed, okay? It's kind of the same way. Now, for most of this video, I'm gonna refer to an article that was written in Forbes about 4 years ago. And in this article, Forbes interviewed Frank Wang in like a 3 or 4 part series. So they went into a lot of depth, and they talked about GoPro. And there hasn't really been any other articles that I've found that have really shed a light on this subject like this article. So I'm gonna read a direct quote from Frank Wang, what he said to Forbes. All right, so this was right in the beginning he's talking about. So I was a perfectionist and I was abrasive when it came to interacting with other people. To give you an example, I believe whoever contributed more should get more shares. But I thought the share amount shouldn't be equal. Whoever contributed more should be given more. It shouldn't be egalitarian. But at the end, I pissed everyone off. I pissed off the person who was given fewer shares. He felt that it was unfair, so he left. But I also pissed off the person who was given more because he asked if he could gift his shares to the other person. I said, no, you have to take your share. You have to take more shares. He had some arguments and my tone was insensitive. And I said something like, at this company, I am in charge. When he left the company, he said this incident made him feel hurt. So by the end of those 2 years, everyone left the company. So DJI basically, everyone cleaned house. Frank Wang was by himself. He had to hire all new employees. And I think he learned from this, but that sort of gives you a sense of the type of guy he is. You know, super driven, super competitive, and he wants to reward the person who puts forth the most effort. And it sounds very capitalistic, very American, and the people who worked for him obviously had a little different views. They wanted it to be more equal. They thought it wasn't fair. That's the beginning of DJI. All right, guys, so let's talk about the first Phantom drone. That was the first really super successful drone for DJI. Some people might not call it successful, but you know, it put them on the map. And the thing about the Phantom drone was you could use GoPro cameras if you wanted to. So a lot of people use GoPro cameras and they didn't ever have an agreement together, but obviously the more Phantom drones that Frank Wang sold, the more money GoPro and the CEO Nick Woodman would make. So when Frank Wang was asked whether the Phantom 1 was built specifically for the GoPro in mind, this is what he said. We are not willing to be someone else's accessory, but a lot of our customers had the need to use a GoPro camera for aerial footage, so we made a product like this. However, from the beginning to now, we never wanted to be in the shadow of someone else. Whoa, I gotta stop for a second. Look at that lizard. Sorry about that, guys. I had to move my stuff because someone decided to bring all their loud music to the park so everyone could hear it. So now I had to move from that beautiful location to a simple park bench. All right, guys, I know that's frustrating for you, frustrating for me as well, but we're gonna continue on with the vlog. So I was talking about Frank Wang, and this is the real interesting part. Now he starts talking about the actual cameras. We're gonna get into the battle for the chips. It's all gonna make sense in a second, because he said in the past, it wasn't like we couldn't make good cameras. Our suppliers sold the best chips to GoPro and only sold us the second grade chips because we were not big enough. For Phantom Vision, our camera was one generation behind GoPro's, but our newest camera is better than GoPro's. And this article is 4 years old, so I think he's referring to the Inspire 1, because we convinced the supplier to sell us the newest generation of chips. So it's all a battle for the chips, as I said in this title, and hope that makes sense to you guys if you got that double entendre. If you don't get it, think about it for a little bit. Ask someone in the comments. We're gonna keep it going. All right, so after knowing this, my question is, why didn't DJI just partner with GoPro? If they have all the best chips, I'm thinking he's talking about chips, he means sensors. Could be the processor, but I think he's talking about the sensors here. If he's talking about the, you know, the better sensors and newer sensors inside the camera, why didn't he just partner with GoPro? Okay, this is what he said. Frank Wang told Forbes, "We discussed this with GoPro at the time of the first Phantom. Initially, we wanted to make a product together for GoPro to sell, but the negotiation never came to fruition. They treated us like the original equipment manufacturers, OEM. The deal came out to roughly this. GoPro would make 2 points of profit and I'd make 1 point of profit. So GoPro would make the $2 for every DJI's $1. And obviously Frank wasn't happy with this. He said, I thought it should be, I make 2 points of profit and GoPro makes 1 point of profit, because the product from the beginning to the end would have been mine. GoPro was only a sales channel. They dealt with us like how they dealt with Taiwanese OEMs. So we never had a successful official partnership. Unofficially, I still made their gimbal, which was good for both sides." So the way I look at this, I think Frank Wang is saying that, hey, I'm making the drone. The people are buying mainly this product because of the drone, not for the camera. But at the same time, the camera's super important. I mean, and GoPro has a huge name, so He said, oh, they're only a sales channel. Well, sales is huge. Sales and marketing, if you don't have sales and marketing, it's hard to sell anything. So since the beginning, DJI has had a substantial amount of the drone market. It's only gotten bigger over time, but GoPro has the name. So it was a real ballsy and bold call at the time, especially because we didn't know the outcome of what would happen, all right? Consumer drones were just in their infancy. Obviously, he probably looked at the metrics and saw they were rising, and in a few years, it would be where it is today. But it's hard to really predict the future, and there's also a stigma attached to stuff that's made by a Chinese company, okay? And he talks about that, versus GoPro, which is an American company. Frank talked about how he wants to change that and change the perception of being a Chinese company. So he said, Chinese people learn English from a young age. Chinese people think imported products, mean outside of China, are good, and made in China products are inferior. We're always second class, so I have no sense of achievement. It's like your mom gave birth to you, but your mom is ugly. What can you do? You don't despise your mom for being ugly because you have her genes too. And then he went on to say, I'm unsatisfied with the overall environment in China, and I want to do something to change it. And then Frank went on later in this article to talk about how he really hates how in China all these companies copy each other. So when you make a product, within a few days someone else has a product to knock off just like it. And that, you know, outside of China, that doesn't really exist as much. Okay, in China it's constantly crazy, and his job, he says right now, is just basically keeping those type of companies away, you know, make sure his patents aren't stolen, dealing with litigation, lawsuits, copying, and that takes up a lot of his time, whereas, you know, deep down he just loves flying drones and engineering them and doing software and stuff like that. So I think Frank Wang kind of has a personality type like Steve Jobs. He wants to be on the top. He doesn't want to be second to any other company, and he wants to do it his way because he knows he's super talented, much like Steve Jobs. Frank Wang is an extremely gifted person. He actually has a tremendous vision, which he's done for DJI. They even asked him about how he views Steve Jobs. He says, I appreciate Steve Jobs' ideas, but there is no one I truly admire. All you need to do is to be smarter than others. There needs to be a distance from the masses. If you can create that distance, you will be successful. So in other words, he doesn't want to join up, the way I interpret it, he doesn't want to join up with anyone else. He wants to create his own legacy. I read some other articles and I've heard, you know, that Frank wants to not only be known as a drone company, but as a camera company. So with the likes of Canon, Nikon, and other stuff, that could be down the road, not just action cameras, but expanding. I also think of Jeff Bezos. He started Amazon. It was just, you know, an online book company, but essentially was putting Walmart online. And not just Walmart, it's kind of everything. It's beyond that. It's going to go into transportation and all sorts of services. You know, they have Whole Foods now is owned by Amazon and other places. So I think that's Frank Wang's vision, that he basically doesn't want to just be a drone manufacturer, that he wants to be a camera manufacturer. And maybe just a tech manufacturer down the road, who knows? So now that we have more insight into the psychology and the mind of Frank Wang and DJI, we can see that there's never gonna be a total agreement. They're not gonna really partner with GoPro. They're gonna try to take over GoPro, okay? And I think GoPro obviously has been around for so long, they're not just gonna stand there and take it. So it's inevitable that it comes down to this, the battle for the chips. Wow guys, look at that iguana. Do you guys see him right there? Alright guys, I hope you enjoyed this real raw vlog. If you did, give it a thumbs up. I'm going to be doing a lot more videos with the DJI Osmo Action and the GoPro Hero 7 in the next couple weeks. So if you want to see those type of videos, they're going to be more tutorials. This was a lot of talking today, but they're not going to be like that. They're going to be more in-depth tutorials to help you guys be better content creators. So if you want to see those videos, subscribe to my channel, and remember guys, siempre pa'lante, nunca para atrás.